Sarah's heart raced with excitement as she stood before the towering Victorian house on Elm Street. The old place had been in her family for generations, and now, as the sole heir, it was hers. With the jangling of keys, she unlocked the heavy wooden door, eager to explore her new home. The air inside was stale and musty, filled with the scent of years gone by. Dust danced in the sunlight streaming through stained glass windows, casting rainbow hues across the worn floorboards. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the empty rooms as she wandered from one to the next, her fingers trailing along peeling wallpaper and faded tapestries. As evening fell, Sarah lit candles to chase away the encroaching darkness. But no amount of light could dispel the feeling of unease that settled over her like a suffocating blanket. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting in sinister shapes that seemed to watch her every move. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in the most unlikely of places. Whispers echoed through the halls, too faint to make out words but filled with an undeniable malevolence. And then, there were the apparitions, flickers of movement caught out of the corner of her eye, vanishing the moment she turned to look. Determined to unravel the mystery of her ancestral home, Sarah began to explore every nook and cranny. It was during one such expedition that she stumbled upon the hidden room in the basement, concealed behind a false wall obscured by cobwebs and dust. Heart pounding, Sarah pushed open the door, revealing a chamber shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and a chill crept down her spine as she stepped inside. Strange symbols adorned the walls, their meaning lost to time, and in the center of the room stood an ornate pedestal, upon which rested a dusty old tome bound in cracked leather. With trembling hands, Sarah reached out and opened the book, its pages brittle with age. As she read the words inscribed within, a sense of dread washed over her. Tale of betrayal and bloodshed, of curses and vengeful spirits bound to the house for all eternity. It was then that she heard it, the sound of chains rattling in the darkness, growing louder with each passing moment. Frozen with fear, Sarah watched as the shadows coalesced into the form of a spectral figure, its eyes hollow sockets that seemed to pierce her very soul. "You have uncovered our secret," the specter hissed, its voice like the whisper of dead leaves on the wind. "Now you must pay the price." With a flick of its ethereal hand, the specter sent Sarah sprawling to the ground, her vision swimming with darkness. When she came to, she found herself bound to the pedestal, chains wrapped tightly around her wrists and ankles. Desperate to escape, Sarah struggled against her bonds, but they held fast, cutting into her flesh with every movement. And as the specter loomed over her, its eyes filled with a hunger that sent shivers racing down her spine, Sarah knew that she was doomed to share the same fate as those who had come before her. But even as darkness closed in around her, Sarah refused to surrender to despair. With every ounce of strength she possessed, she fought against the chains that bound her, her will to survive burning bright even in the face of certain death. And as the first light of dawn pierced the darkness, Sarah's screams echoed through the house, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked within its walls. For Elm Street was a place of darkness and despair, a place where the sins of the past cast long shadows over the present, and where the spirits of the dead walked the earth in search of vengeance. Mark had always found solace in the wilderness. There was something about the untamed beauty of nature that called to him, a siren song that whispered of adventure and freedom. So when he stumbled upon a remote cabin deep in the heart of the woods, he knew he had found his sanctuary. The cabin stood nestled among towering pines, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. With a sense of anticipation, Mark unlocked the door and stepped inside, inhaling the scent of pine and earth that permeated the air. The interior was modest but cozy, with a crackling fireplace and a small cot tucked into the corner. After lighting a fire and unpacking his gear, Mark felt a sense of peace wash over him, a feeling of being truly at home in the wilderness. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness descended upon the forest, that sense of peace began to fade. Strange noises echoed through the trees, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, the distant howl of a lone wolf. Mark dismissed them as the normal sounds of the wilderness, but a nagging feeling of unease lingered in the back of his mind. As he settled down for the night, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Shadows danced in the flickering firelight, their movements fluid and unnatural. And then, there were the whispers, soft, indistinct murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the cabin. With a shiver, Mark pulled the blankets tighter around himself and tried to push the thoughts from his mind. But sleep eluded him, chased away by the ever-present sense of unease that gnawed at his nerves. As the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, their words taking on a sinister edge. Mark's heart raced as he listened, his mind conjuring images of malevolent spirits lurking in the darkness outside. Then, with a suddenness that sent his pulse skyrocketing, the cabin fell silent. The fire burned low, casting long shadows that stretched across the floor like grasping fingers. And in the stillness, Mark heard it, a low guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very bones of the earth. Fear clutched at his heart as he realized he was not alone in the woods. Something was out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting to pounce on its unsuspecting prey. With trembling hands, Mark reached for his flashlight and crept to the window, peering out into the night. The forest lay cloaked in darkness, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. But as he scanned the shadows, his blood ran cold. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at him from the depths of the woods, their gaze filled with hunger and malice. Panic surged through Mark's veins as he stumbled back from the window, his mind racing with fear. He knew he had to get out of the cabin, to flee into the safety of the open wilderness. But as he moved to grab his pack, a low, menacing growl sounded from outside the door, freezing him in his tracks. For a moment, Mark hesitated, his mind grappling with the impossible reality of his situation. But then, fueled by adrenaline and sheer desperation, he lunged for the door, flinging it open and sprinting into the night. The forest closed in around him, the trees seeming to reach out with gnarled branches that grasped at his clothing. But Mark didn't stop to look back, didn't dare to slow his pace for fear of what might be lurking in the darkness behind him. As he ran, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, footsteps crashing through the underbrush, the snap of twigs beneath heavy paws. But Mark pushed himself onward, driven by the primal instinct to survive at any cost. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he burst into a clearing, the moon casting its pale light upon a small, rushing stream. With a surge of hope, Mark plunged into the icy waters, the chill shocking him awake with its biting embrace. For a moment, he thought he was safe, that he had outrun whatever had been hunting him in the woods. But then, as he turned to look back at the tree line, he saw them, the glowing eyes, watching from the shadows with an intelligence that sent a chill down his spine. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Mark knew that he was not alone in the wilderness, that something sinister lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victim. And though he had escaped with his life, he knew that the memory of that fateful night would haunt him forever. Emily had always found inspiration in solitude, so when she stumbled upon the forgotten farmhouse nestled in the rolling hills of the countryside, she knew she had found the perfect retreat to work on her latest novel. With its weathered exterior and overgrown garden, the old house exuded a sense of mystery that drew her in like a moth to a flame. As she stepped through the creaking door, a chill ran down Emily's spine, sending shivers racing across her skin. The air inside was heavy with the scent of dust and decay, and the faint echoes of footsteps seemed to linger in the darkness. Undeterred by the eerie atmosphere, Emily set about unpacking her belongings, filling the empty rooms with the familiar trappings of home. But as night fell and darkness descended upon the farmhouse, a sense of unease settled over her like a suffocating blanket. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. Emily would wake in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. Vivid nightmares plagued her sleep, filling her mind with images of twisted figures and malevolent spirits. At first, she dismissed them as the product of an overactive imagination, the result of too many late nights spent poring over her manuscript. But as the days turned into weeks, the nightmares grew more frequent, their grip on her mind tightening with each passing night. Reality blurred around Emily, the line between dreams and waking life becoming increasingly indistinct. Shadows danced along the walls, their movements fluid and unnatural, and strange whispers echoed through the empty corridors, their words too faint to make out, but filled with an undeniable malevolence. Desperate for answers, Emily began to delve into the farmhouse's history, scouring old newspapers and dusty archives for clues to its dark past. What she uncovered sent shivers racing down her spine. A tale of tragedy and despair, of a family torn apart by madness and death. As she delved deeper, Emily began to experience hallucinations, visions of the farmhouse's former inhabitants, their faces twisted in agony and despair. She saw them in every shadow, heard their anguished cries echoing through the empty rooms. But it was the discovery of a hidden room in the attic that sent her spiraling into madness. Concealed behind a crumbling wall, the room was filled with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts, their presence sending a chill down Emily's spine. With trembling hands, she began to decipher the cryptic symbols inscribed within the pages of the books, unlocking the farmhouse's darkest secrets. She learned of rituals performed in the dead of night, of sacrifices made to appease unseen forces that dwelled within the walls. And as she read, Emily felt something stirring in the depths of her soul, a darkness that threatened to consume her from within. She could feel its tendrils reaching out to her, whispering promises of power and knowledge beyond her wildest dreams. But Emily knew that she could not succumb to the darkness that lurked within the farmhouse. With every ounce of strength she possessed, she fought against the malevolent forces that sought to claim her soul, determined to break free from their grasp. And as the first light of dawn pierced the darkness, Emily emerged from the farmhouse, her body battered and bruised, but her spirit unbroken. For though the farmhouse held many secrets, she had faced them head-on and emerged victorious, her soul unscathed by the darkness that had threatened to consume her. Jack arrived at his aunt's suburban home with a sense of excitement, looking forward to a relaxing break from the hustle and bustle of city life. The neighborhood seemed idyllic, a picturesque landscape of manicured lawns and neatly trimmed hedges, with rows of identical houses stretching into the distance. But as Jack settled into his aunt's house, a sense of unease settled over him like a dark cloud. There was something off about the neighborhood, something that lurked beneath the surface of its seemingly perfect facade. Strange neighbors watched him from behind curtains, their eyes filled with suspicion and mistrust. Mysterious disappearances plagued the neighborhood, whispered about in hushed tones at the local coffee shop. And unsettling events seemed to occur with alarming frequency. A cat found mutilated in a neighbor's yard, strange symbols spray-painted on the walls of abandoned houses. Determined to uncover the truth behind the suburban nightmare, Jack set out to investigate, his curiosity fueled by a sense of righteous indignation. But with each passing day, the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the neighborhood grew more palpable, threatening to swallow him whole. His first clue came in the form of a strange symbol carved into the bark of a tree in the local park. A sigil of unknown origin, its meaning lost to time. Intrigued, Jack began to research its significance, scouring old books and dusty archives for clues to its origins. What he uncovered sent chills racing down his spine, a tale of ancient rituals and unspeakable horrors, of the darkness that had plagued the neighborhood for generations. And at the center of it all was a cult, a secretive group that worshipped the darkness, sacrificing innocents to appease their unseen masters. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Jack realized that he was in over his head. But he couldn't turn back now, not when the truth was within his grasp. Armed with newfound knowledge, he delved deeper into the heart of the suburban nightmare, determined to expose the cult for what they truly were. But as he dug deeper, Jack began to attract unwanted attention. Strange figures lurked in the shadows, watching his every move with cold, calculating eyes. Threats were whispered in the darkness, warnings to abandon his quest before it was too late. Undeterred, Jack pressed on, his determination fueled by a sense of righteous fury. He uncovered hidden tunnels beneath the neighborhood, their walls lined with ancient symbols and blood-stained altars. And in the depths of those tunnels, he found evidence of the cult's dark rituals, sacrificial offerings and arcane artifacts that sent shivers racing down his spine. But as he prepared to expose the cult to the world, disaster struck. His aunt disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a cryptic message scribbled on a scrap of paper. And as Jack read those words, he realized with a sinking feeling that he was next, that the cult would stop at nothing to protect their secrets, even if it meant sacrificing him to their dark masters. With time running out, Jack raced against the clock to uncover the truth behind the suburban nightmare, risking life and limb in the process. But as he delved deeper into the darkness, he realized that some secrets were best left buried, that the price of uncovering the truth might be higher than he ever imagined. And as the shadows closed in around him, Jack knew that he was running out of time, that the suburban nightmare threatened to consume him whole. Lisa had been thrilled to find an affordable apartment in the heart of the city. Fresh out of college and eager to start her new job, she saw the rundown complex as a stepping stone to independence. But from the moment she moved in, she sensed that something was amiss. The first sign of trouble came on her very first night. As Lisa lay in bed, trying to shake off the exhaustion of moving day, she heard it, a soft scratching at the walls like nails on a chalkboard. At first, she dismissed it as the sound of rodents scurrying through the walls, but as the scratching grew louder, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over her like a heavy blanket. As days turned into weeks, the strange occurrences only intensified. Unexplained noises echoed through the halls at all hours of the night, keeping Lisa awake until the early hours of the morning. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance along the walls, and shadowy figures lurked in the corners of her vision, vanishing the moment she turned to look. Determined to uncover the truth behind the apartment complex's dark history, Lisa began to research its past, scouring old newspapers and online archives for clues to its origins. What she found sent chills racing down her spine. A tale of murder and betrayal, of a building haunted by the ghosts of its former inhabitants. But as she delved deeper into the complex's history, Lisa realized that the truth was far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. The building had once been a sanctuary for the city's most vulnerable, a refuge for the homeless and destitute. But when the funds ran dry and the building fell into disrepair, its inhabitants were left to fend for themselves, forgotten by society, and left to rot in the shadows. As Lisa uncovered the dark secrets of the apartment complex, she found herself drawn into a web of madness and despair. The spirits of the building's former inhabitants seemed to reach out to her from beyond the grave, their anguished cries echoing through the empty halls. Desperate to escape the madness that threatened to consume her, Lisa sought solace in the company of her neighbors. But as she reached out to them, she realized that they too were haunted by the ghosts of the past, their eyes hollow and haunted, their voices filled with the echoes of unspeakable horrors. With each passing day, Lisa felt herself slipping further into madness, her mind unraveling as she struggled to make sense of the darkness that surrounded her. And as the shadows closed in around her, she knew that she was running out of time, that if she didn't escape the apartment complex soon, she would be lost to the darkness forever. With trembling hands, Lisa packed her bags and fled the apartment complex, leaving behind the horrors that lurked within its walls. But even as she drove away, She could still feel the eyes of the building's malevolent inhabitants watching her from the shadows, their whispers of madness echoing in her ears. For Lisa, the apartment complex would always be a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the city, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and where the shadows held secrets too terrible to imagine.